the reasons now, Dr. Hamid, Muslim philosophers, they are criticized, as we mentioned slightly, is that they said that they upheld reason above revelation. So they were giving too much importance to reason above the Quran and the Hadith. So that's how the criticism actually looks like on the face of it. So one of the controversial ideas, which is still relevant, and it's so interesting that Islamic philosophy hasn't gone out of fashion, and neither has its criticism. So one of their controversial ideas was the eternity of the world, and which is still discussed in cosmological circles. Cosmologists still discuss this. So we want to understand from you, why did they hold this idea? Were they really compromising on the status of the Quran by holding this idea of the eternity of the world?
This was one of the subjects on which Ghazali had just taken strongly the views of philosophers Ibn Sina and Al-Farabi. And on this subject, he had condemned them, and he even issued a decree of infidelity against them, that these are blasphemous words, that to believe that this world is eternal, because this world is created. It is khalq, it is not qadim. It has been created. It is muhaddis. It has been created at one particular period of time. So we can't call this world as eternal. Why philosophers had held this view? This is interesting. Basically, when I go deeper into this, especially the Greek philosophy, there were two philosophers. One was Plato, who had talked about ideas. So ideas are basically the real things. And then every particular is just its copy. And if there is no idea, there can be no copy of that. So basic real things are the ideas, are concepts. And other things are the copies of that. And there everything is consisting of, that is form and particular, or universal and particular. And when there is no universal, there can't be any particular. So then Aristotle he made it topsy-turvy. He said, if there is no matter, where from the form can come? If first comes matter, then comes form. So if anything has no matter, it has no form at all. So then if we see that everything comes from matter, then what about the spiritual things? What about God? If everything is consisting of matter and form, then Nozbillah, God will be form of form, because there is no matter. And in this way, the philosophy of Aristotle failed. Now it was Plotinus who came with the idea that no, basically it is the emanation. Everything has emanated from God. As light emanates from sun, as water emanates from spring, in the same way, this universe has come out from God. It has emanated from God. So in this way, everything is basically emanating from God, and there is an eternal process of emanation. So now there is no matter of time. But if we believe that this world is created at a particular time, then God is determined by time. So to avoid this philosophical contradiction, these philosophers said that this world is eternal. It has been always there. It was coexisting in a sense with God, Nozbillah. And then there are other arguments which philosophers have developed. And this was taken by Ibn Sina and Al-Farabi. And for that reason, Ghazali had leveled against them the allegation of blasphemy, that they are blaspheming Islam when they say that this world is eternal. Because Allah is eternal, He is azali and abadi. This world is created. It is hadith. It is not permanent. And then Ibn Taymiyyah has said that these terms like qadim and hadith, these have been not used in the Quran. Quran has used the terms like badi, like khaliq for God, not hadith or qadim. So these are the innovations. And same thing in a sense was mentioned by Yaqub al-Kindi. He says that Quran has used two terms for the universe, creation of the universe. One is khalq and second is badi. Khaliq and badi. Khaliq means God has created something from something. For example, this earth has been created. Allah has created this earth. But God has created sama from nothing. Creation, creatio ex nihilo. And something is created out of nothing. So Allah can do that. For Allah, it is not impossible to create something from nothing. But philosophers were saying, no, how it is possible that if there is no matter, there can be form. Every form should have a matter. Every universal should have a particular. So in this way, to remove this contradiction, our philosophers like Ibn Sina and Al-Farabi, they held the view of Aristotle, not even of Plato, Platonic view. And then they confounded both the views with Neoplatonism. And then they added also the emanation, which I mentioned about Plotinus. And in this way, they believed in this eternity of the world doctrine, which was going against the basic teachings of Islam. And second point also was on which Ghazali had leveled the allegation of blasphemy against them. That was God has knowledge only of the particular universals, not of the particulars. And also that only the spirituals or spiritual existences, essences of men, that is souls, will resurrect, not the bodies. So on these three, he leveled against them the allegation of, he said that they have become blasphemous, infidel, when they believe in these doctrines, like eternity of the world, like resurrection of the souls, or knowledge of the universals at the expense of particulars. So here they had deviated from Islamic tenets and Islamic belief system. And for that reason, many people have said about them that they have gone away from the actual Islamic teachings and essence. So, but they wanted to, reconcile Greek philosophy with Islam. While trying to this reconciliation, they made several type of mistakes for which they were just criticized by Ghazali, Ibn Taymiyyah, and Ibn Salah, and Ahmad bin Hanbal and others. That whether they were giving much more importance to reason than revelation. And that was the problem. There has been always this problem that some people have preferred reason sometimes. And it started from the Mu'tazilites.
Yes.
So Mu'tazilites believe that reason can never go against religion and religion can never go against reason. And if religion goes against reason, we should interpret religion in a rational way. And then we should make ta'wil of that. And that was the problem with the Mu'tazilites. They said that Salah wa asla Allah. Allah will always give the good command of the good things and the best things. He will never say something which is not good, which is evil. So this was to give preference to reason, but reason has limitations. It was Ghazali who has just shown the limitations of reason, which was later on also shown by Kant, Immanuel Kant. Yes. And he just criticized the reason in order to make place for faith. Ghazali also criticized reason, that reason has limitations. But philosophers in most cases, they lay much emphasis on reason, and they wanted to interpret everything in the rational way and interpret those things which are not otherwise to be interpreted, which are to be believed. Islam and religion is not everything based on reason, because human reason is ever changing. It is not static. It keeps on changing with the passage of time. And the knowledge and information of men also increases. So the human reason also grows along with our growth of our thought and understanding and evolution of world and evolution of human reasoning. So this is a very important point, that Islam has laid much emphasis on revelation, but philosophers sometimes lay much emphasis on reason, and they interpret things in rational way, which otherwise should be believed, and that also creates confusion.
That's very interesting, and the fact that the argument is still on with in modern cosmology, that makes it even more interesting. It's very nice that you've given us a broad overview. You've actually told us why they reasoned the way they did and what were their intentions. It's going to be very interesting for our viewers to actually know that the primary motivation behind this view wasn't really atheistic as such, but it was actually based on the idea of God and how the early Greeks, especially Aristotle, I'm talking about, how he viewed God. So this idea goes back to Aristotle, what was being used by Ibn Sina. So Aristotle denied that time began at a certain point because, according to him, it was absurd to think how time begins. I mean, we use time to understand when events begin and end. How can time itself begin? So that was his, question. So, were there earlier moments at which time did not exist? How can there be moments without time? So, for Aristotle, time is the measure of motion, and every motion is due to a prior motion acting on it. So, Aristotle used this eternal universe argument to actually prove the existence of God. This is very important to understand because many people they think that Ibn Sina was just being like almost like an atheist, denying the Quran, and as we discussed, but there was a motivation behind it. But obviously, we can discuss whether it was right or was it wrong. So Aristotle used this eternal universe argument to prove the existence of God by saying that since things don't move on their own, thus all motion has been going on since eternity, and since you can't have an eternal motion except for an immaterial cause like God. So that actually is God, the eternal mover, the first mover. And Ibn Sina found this to be very compatible with Islam, and that's why he took that. And as we've seen, Imam Ghazali did point out the flaws in this argument.